Good evening, everyone. This is a talk that happened a few weeks ago, and a number of people expressed an interest in hearing it, so we decided to record it. Demetrios Hadjidemetriou, on my left here, is going to talk about Cyprus nationalism versus internationalism. The first part of the talk will cover events leading up to 1974, and the second part will cover events since 1974. And finally, we will be joined by Aisha, who will speak of her experiences living in a Turkish enclave in 1964. Okay, so Demetrios is going to speak for approximately 20 minutes.
Thanks, Janet. Yeah, every year in the months of July and August, we in Cyprus get lots of speeches talking about the events. And basically, it's the coup in July, 15th of July, 74, followed 5 days later, the Turkish invasion. Now, these politicians mainly talk about fanatics and how they were responsible for these events. However, the result was not the actions of a few fanatics who killed, raped, looted, destroyed, and so on. It was the history is the history of the conflict between two warring ruling classes, both sides, the Greek Cypriots one side, Turkish Cypriots on the other, and how they were trying to secure their interest. It's important to bear this in mind. Also, because as Janet alluded to, the events do not start in 74, so we have to cover what preceded these events. It's always difficult to know where to start. But the main part of the conflict between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, I would say, started around about 1958. A few years earlier, EOKA, a Greek Cypriot nationalist organization, started the struggle to get rid of the British colonial rulers with the aim of Enosis, Cyprus uniting with Greece. On that, they were supported more or less by everybody, every Greek Cypriot organization. With the Turkish Cypriots, their response to form TMT, their equivalent nationalist organization that campaigned for Taksim partition. And by 1958, where I want to start, they started killing each other. And not just the nationalists killing the other nationalists and vice versa, but also killing leftists of their own community. So we have a multi-conflict where you have EOKA ostensibly fighting the British, but also killing Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriot leftists, TMT killing Turkish Cypriot leftists, and if they could, EOKA members. So 2 years later, 1960, Cyprus becomes an independent country. The London-Zurich agreements, is a constitution that forbade both Enosis and Taksim. So Cyprus, under the constitution, could not join Greece, and it would not be partitioned. So moving on, this constitution, however, was never implemented fully. Makarios became the first president of Cyprus. He was also the archbishop, Greek Orthodox archbishop, and refused to support the establishment of separate municipalities and mayors in the main towns. Turkish Cypriots then, in response, did not vote for new taxes, which were necessary, and Makarios ended up passing those with a presidential decree. Soon after, 1963, Makarios presented his famous 13 points, which were designed to change the constitution, according to him, to make it more workable. But it was a lot more than that. Turkish Cypriots rejected it straight away, because effectively what he was trying to do is remove any veto rights of the Turkish Cypriots, leaving them exposed. That led to a situation ready for a war. It's a bit like the First World War. The conditions were right, and all that was needed was a spark. There was no there was no Cypriot army official, and even though 5,000 armed men, paramilitaries, were organized by the Greek Cypriots, and they were controlled by the Minister of Interior, and they had a plan, the Akrida plan. And once the spark happened, I think it was Christmas Eve 1963, there was a murder of a Turkish Cypriot woman. The fighting started, and the Akrida plan was put into operation. The result is that Turkish Cypriot, in order for their protection, moved from mixed villages into separate enclaves that they could defend easier, rather than being in individual houses in mixed villages and mixed communities. So we have the 18% of the population, the Turkish Cypriots, occupying less than 5% of the land. And I think Aisha is going to say a bit more what it was like later. The fact that the Turkish Cypriot nationalists were always also preparing is neither here nor there, because definitely on that occasion the Greek Cypriots got what they wanted. Lots of innocent people, ordinary people on both sides died, lots of missing refugees in 64, remember, 10 years earlier, and so on. So there was a period of calm, and in 67 there was another conflict, another military engagement, again that pushed Turkish Cypriots into further isolation, more killings, more lootings, more refugees. And then 74, but I have to stress that between these periods, it wasn't just everything was peaceful. There was an economic war going on at the same time. And I will give some examples. Turkish Cypriots were not given permits to build their own factories or hotels unless they had Greek Cypriot partners, which, as far as I know, never happened. Banks did not hire Turkish Cypriot employees. The church, which was the largest and still is the largest landowner in Cyprus, neither sold nor rented houses, shops, or estates to Turkish Cypriots. They never did any project in Turkish Cypriot areas. So that was the church. Well, okay, I'll speed up a bit. Yeah, as a result, by 63, Turkish Cypriot had only 6.1% of industrial production. They had 12.6 of the agricultural production and only 0.5% of all exports. So under these circumstances, nationalism grew. I have not mentioned AKEL, which is the Greek Cypriot Communist Party. It was huge then, it's still big now. They supported Enosis, union with Greece, and that was a huge problem. I'll give you an example. In 48, BO, the Greek, the Trade Union Federation, controlled by AKEL, had 13,000 members. 3,000 were Turkish Cypriots. Once they moved for Enosis slogan, they lost practically all the Turkish Cypriot members they had. I need to say a few words about the relationship between Greece and Greek Cypriots, because that will lead up to the coup of 74. There was a paternal relationship, but it was not always friendly. Greece was a dictatorship between 67 up to 74, and they were extremely unpopular. In 73, by 73, the Polytechnic uprising in Athens showed and exposed them in how unpopular they were. They smashed it with tanks. In the meantime, Cyprus capitalists opened up in the Middle East, the Soviet Union. They built up the tourist industry, and they were feeling more and more confident. And in a way, some of them moving away from the idea of union with Greece and being dominated by Greek capitalists. This conflict led to eventually the colonels in Greece engineering the coup, as I mentioned, 15th of July 1974, to oust Makarios and put up their stooges in EOKA B, which was formed after the original EOKA. The coup in 74 lasted 5 days, and that's when Turkey invaded, and the juntas collapsed. The resistance to the coup, and then Greek workers refusing to go and get killed on behalf of the junta, meant that both the Greek and the Greek Cypriot juntas collapsed soon after the invasion. The conflict and the war in Cyprus is reactionary and unfair on both sides. In 74, Greek Cypriots and Greek capitalists lost, but it doesn't mean that they have justice on their side. They are not the innocent victims they like to pretend they are. Previous years, they were the ones who were oppressing the Turkish Cypriot minority. Ordinary people on both sides are the victims, both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, Greeks and Turks. They lost their lives, their loved ones, their homes, everything. Those who did nothing wrong, they paid the price for the greed and competition of rival ruling classes. And I'll end here for events up to 74.